Hey, what's going on? It's Will, recording this video for Gohan Solo, having a look at his new Yu-Gi-Oh! Reboot. Now that we have the new custom card feature on Dueling Book, we've been developing this game much more and refining it. If you want to play the game, you can have a look at on Dueling Book under the custom cards. If you type in Harry Go7, you get all of his custom cards come up. So what he's done so far is basically Starter Deck Kaiba, Starter Deck Yugi, and LOB in terms of what he's released, I think. And he's also got Starter Deck Pegasus, Joey, and Metal Raiders complete, and is working on uploading those. So what I'm going to have a look at today is a deck for the format, which includes LOB, Starter Deck Yugi, Starter Deck Kaiba. It's a pretty fun deck. There are, once LOB comes out, there are some pretty powerful decks in the format, and this is probably one that's more. I suppose because obviously the game is quite underdeveloped at the moment because it's just me and Harry playing it. I guess you could say this is a tier 2. It's a more fun style deck, but probably if other people started playing the game and actually developing the decks from the sets, this would be pushed down like tier 3, tier 4. It wouldn't actually be that competitive. If you are interested in playing this game, I would suggest first off starting by just playing Starter Deck Yugi, Starter Deck Kaiba format. If you have ever played that format in the original game in actual Yu-Gi-Oh before, it's fun. You'll know it's fun, but it's kind of very. It doesn't have much longevity to it. You know, you can play a few games and get an idea, but there's not really that many deck variations you can build and stuff. But from mine and Harry's testing, looking at just his version, if you just have the format, Starter Deck Kaiba, Starter Deck Yugi, there's so many decks and so much variation, and to be fair, most of the time the decks are constructed around a cookie cutter core, but you can't just play these cookie cutter decks because they actually lose out to decks that lean one way or another towards a few different themes. There's probably like 6 good themes that you have to kind of lean towards if you want to be beating the cookie cutter deck. So yeah, it's a really interesting format. So obviously I'm profiling an LOB deck here, but I would say play SDK SDY for a good long time if you're interested in playing this reboot, because there's so much there before you jump into the LOB. So basically, yeah, this is a pretty interesting deck. It's kind of like a rock fairy kind of thing. It's basically built around Wasteland. So Wasteland, while only you control a dinosaur, reptile, or rock monster, this card gains the following effects. Once per turn, send one dinosaur, reptile, or rock type monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its level times 200. So yeah, the the Wasteland obviously acts as deck thinning and acts as, you know, a fairly considerable amount of burn. And then ideally, I suppose the game plan is that earlier on in the game you're working with the rock monsters using Giant Soldier of Stone and Wasteland and Destroyer Golem, and I'll read those effects out for you in a minute as I explain it, to do a combination of a thin in the deck and getting pokes in, so that in the late game you can set up the whatever this thing's called, Megami finisher, using the battle traps. So Giant Soldier of Stone. So as I say, Wasteland is to an extent, you know, what your game plan is situated around. So getting Wasteland on board, you will normally just want to be going activate Wasteland in the opening hand and then summoning either a rock or a dinosaur, because I'm not playing any reptiles. The dinosaur is in the form of two-mouthed Darkruler. You want to just be sending Sandstone and getting the 1200 burn, which is a pretty nice opener, and obviously you're fitting the Sandstones out of the deck. Drawing the Sandstones isn't really a problem. You've got in terms of floaters, you've got Destroyer Golem, and then you've got your Giant Soldier of Stone, which has obviously big defense. So I mean, getting or opening with Sandstone is dealable. Or also you're playing Spirit of the Harp as well. which it's unlikely to get run over if you open some combination of Destroy Golem, Giant Soldier of Stone, and Lady of the Harp. So if you do draw the Sandstone, it's not bad. You can tribute the guy in order to set the sandstone, and it's pretty powerful. It's not too bad. So yeah, and then Sandstone's effect is just Man-Eater Bug. When it's flipped, target one card on the field, destroy. Oh, it's better than Man-Eater Bug. It targets a card. I hadn't realised that. But it was just target a monster. So yeah, target a card on the field and destroy it. And of course, it itself is a rock type monster. So when it is face up on the field, if you flip it during their turn or whatever, or if they attack it with something with 16 or less, then you can use the Wasteland to send another one from the deck to the grave to burn for the 1200. Giant Soldier of Stone is fantastic in this game. Once per turn, send one rock type monster from your deck to the graveyard and draw a card. So, obviously a +1. Obviously the temptation initially is to, if you're opening with Giant Soldier of Stone, is you want to set it and you want to let them attack into it and then use the effect on the next turn. But if you're opening a bit of a boogie hand, then just summon a Giant Soldier of Stone and getting the free draw and getting the Sandstone out of your deck if you've already got one in hand, or your hand's just iffy enough that you don't really want to be risking drawing a Sandstone, is pretty sweet. So if you're going second as well, going opening into Giant Soldier of Stone if they haven't played any monster, or if they played a monster with 13 or less, just normal summoning, get the free draw, and poking in for 13 is really, really nice. This deck is kind of, I suppose you could say, it's a burn deck to an extent, but not really. Part of the strategy is burning early game, and getting in poke damage early game for what it builds up to, which is a big push late game. And part of the reason this deck, out of the decks that we've built so far, would definitely be a tier 2 deck or would be a fun deck, was because that late game scenario is, unless you really, really get the game to the late game, it's pretty difficult to set up. So yeah, Destroy a Golem is just a floater. It floats into a rock with 15 or less attack, summons it in defense position. So obviously you bring out the Giant Soldier of Stone, which is fantastic. You can bring out Sandstone, but I don't know why you'd want to do that. And also you can obviously float into other Destroy Golems for the tribute set of Sandstone or the tribute summon. Well, normally you want to be tribute setting Megami, for reasons I will explain. But yeah, so that's basically the rock lineup, and as I say, most of the time it's dropping Sandstone and you're using the Destroy Golem and the Giant Soldier of Stone in order to get the Wasteland burn, the sort of chip burn in at the beginning. Two-Mouthed Dark Ruler is in the deck because it's a dinosaur. This is probably the weakest card in the deck, but out of the LOB, SDK, SDY format, it's like these are the last sort of free cards you put in. Well, maybe not actually, because you do need the extra types for Wasteland. So Dark Ruler is fairly important in that respect, but it does have a degree of synergy with the lights. Its effect is once per turn you banish any number of lights from your graveyard and inflict damage to opponent equal to the amount of cards banished by its effect times 300. So it does kind of fit into the burn aspect as well, getting the burn chip damage. It has the slight potential to finish the game, but then obviously it combos with the banishing the Megami, banishing the Spirit of the Harp in order to get the burn, and the Wasteland in terms of getting the free draw. So I mean, even if you summon it, even if you get open it with the Wasteland turn 1, you can go normal Wasteland, activate Wasteland, normal to Mouth Dark Ruler just to get the burn, if you really want to. So this is where the fairy aspect of the deck comes in. So Megami's effect, once per turn during either player's turn, you can target one monster on the field, change its battle position. If this card is tributed, you draw a card. If this card is tributed, is not too relevant to this, although you can tribute obviously another one over it, or you can tribute it for Sandstone, but you don't want to be doing this. You want to be doing the rock stuff early in the game, and then you want to transition into the fairy stuff as the late game comes about. The reason for this is silver bow and arrow. So in this reboot version of the game, you can equip it to a fairy type monster. It increases attack and defense by 500, and while equipped to a monster, the equipped monster can attack whilst in face up defense position, and obviously you still apply the attack mode, and if the monster is tributed for whatever reason, you can draw a card. So you can basically set up situations where you've set Megami. They might think it's a sandstone, or they might whatever. You or you can just tribute summon it if you have ways to prevent them being over an 18 beta like Trap Hole. You get it on the field, you get in defense position equipped with Silver Bone Arrow, and then you can have big turns where you activate Castle Walls, bring Megami's defense up to 3500, and then use Reverse Trap, and you can tap while it's in defense, and basically try and effectively finish the game out just through a big swing. And then obviously Megami's effect puts, if they have something in defense, puts it into attack position to act as a bit of a damage gate, so you can push through the last bit of damage. So yeah, that's basically the end goal of the deck. You do kind of, depending on how well the early game's gone in terms of burning the opponent, you do kind of have to have the Megami, the Silver Bow, the Castle Walls, and the Reverse Trap. But also you can get away with just having the Silver Bow and Arrow, Megami kind of set up. You having her with 25 defense and attacking, and yeah, and then the Spirit of the Harp. Besides her having high defense, which effectively makes her, tribute fodder. If she can't be attacked over easily, basically. You get to draw a card, and if it's tributed for the tribute summon of a light monster, you draw a card. So you get draws off of her for summoning Megami, which is nice. And then obviously once she's in the grave, if you need a bit of burn, you can summon the two-mouth Dark Ruler, use the Wasteland's effect if it's on the field, and banish the Spirit of the Harp with the Dark Ruler for burn damage. So then Castle Walls is modified in this game. It stays on the field until the end of turn and increases defense by 1,000. So it's a bit of a buff on the the original Castle Walls. And then obviously you have to be careful with how you're chaining this with Reverse Trap, which just permanently switches all attack and defense for monsters that are currently on the field. Then this is kind of out of the theme of the deck. I suppose these 30 cards here is basically the themed element of the deck. And then other than that, you've got Trap Hole, which is as it was. Fissure, which is destroy face-up monster your opponent controls with the lowest attack if it's a tie you choose. Pot of Greed is now modified so you can activate one per duel, which balances to some extent. Something that was interesting when I was building my first deck, I built a Yami deck. Yami's modified in this game as well. Obviously, all of the original field spells have got quite cool effects that relate to the types of monsters that are on the field if you and only you control them. But one of the interesting things was I wanted to play card destruction in that Yami deck, and I realised you can just play free. Card Destruction's another one like Pot of Greed, which is limited to you can only activate once per duel. But hypothetically, if you were playing a deck that you really want to open that Pot of Greed and you don't mind risk opening two of them, or the likelihood of opening two of them. Yeah, sorry about that. So you can play just as many of these in your deck as you want, and any of the other cards that have that restriction, even though they're once per duel, if you really want to be resolving that effect as quick as possible, which adds an interesting element to it, especially when you have cards like Yami, for example, which discards dead cards from your hand. Sometimes you do want to be playing multiples of them, even though they're restricted. Change of Heart is the same, except you can only activate once per duel. Pretty powerful, fairly relevant in this deck because you got the tribute summons, and also just for because it's Change of Heart wins games, take their thing, attack, whatever. Raigeki is the same, only once per duel. Very, very strong. Dark Hole is obviously available in this game, and also you can. It has the same restriction, but I don't really want to be playing Dark Hole in this deck just because it's kind of a deck that's slower and requires a bit of setup with keeping your things like your Megami on board or your tribute fodder on board or whatever it may be. And then finally, Swords of Revealing Light, which in this game is very, very interesting. It's a bit different. It's much more intriguing in this game. When this card is activated, please place 3 revelation counters on this card, then flip all face down monsters your opponent controls face up. During your opponent's end phase, remove 1 revelation counter from this card. If there are no revelation counters on this card, to destroy it. But also, while this card is face up, your opponent cannot declare an attack. You can remove 1 revelation counter from this card and target 1 face down monster your opponent controls and flip it face up. So yeah, this is kind of my like more fun focused rock, fairy, wasteland centric deck. And as I said before, the ultimate goal is to get good bit of burn damage in early on, and then go Megami with the silver bow and arrow so that it can attack while in defense. Preferably having tributed a Spirit of the Harp to summon it. And then you can draw into cards such as Reverse Trap or Castle Walls, along with Megami's effect to switch your opponent's monsters into attack position in order to finish off the game. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you later for another video.